High volume hiring is one of the hardest jobs in TA right now. And on this episode of the ICIMS Signal podcast, I'm joined by Steve White, former head of talent acquisition at Sam's Club, and Michelle Meehan, who is the CMO at Vetty. We dig into candidate ghosting, where the hiring process breaks down, and how AI and automation can actually build trust, not erode it. If you want the secret success strategy to high volume hiring, well, this episode is just for you. So let's dig in. All right, welcome to the High Volume Hiring Podcast. I am so excited. I've got two people that bring a wealth of knowledge and even more personality. I'm Trent Cotton, head of talent insights and analyst relations at ICIMS, and I've got Michelle and Steve joining me to tackle this really important and very dicey topic. So Michelle, why don't you tell the audience who you are?
Hey everyone, thanks Trent. My name is Michelle Meehan. I am the CMO and current interim VP of CX at Vetty, and I'm so excited to be here with you fellas.
Yeah,
Steve.
excited to be here with you all too. Honored to be here with both of you. Steve White. I'm the head of talent acquisition over at Sam's Club. I've been in talent acquisition for the better part of 20 years. Sometimes it feels weird to say that, but that's about how long it's been now. I'm super excited for the conversation. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, Steve, because it's kind of like you want to establish credibility and say, I've been doing this for 2 decades, but then those numbers hit and you're like, ooh, that kind of hurts a little bit.
Notice I didn't say it, fellas. Notice I didn't say it.
You know what I started saying, Trent? Is that like I don't talk about my time in TA anymore. I talk about the quality of the time in TA.
There you go. There you go. A little bit of a spin.
Try to spin it that way.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Well, I know the three of us have got a passion for high volume. And, you know, in this particular webinar, we really want to get brass tacks. We're not going to talk about theory. We're going to talk about what's really going on in the streets. Yeah. I'm going to bring the data. I know, Steve, you've got a lot of experience. Michelle, you do too. So if it's all right with you, I thought maybe we could establish a little bit of a baseline using some of the data from the ICIMS 2025 Frontline Hiring Report, just to kind of set the stage, and then we can jump right in.
Awesome. Love that idea.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so we polled 1,000 candidates and hiring managers in the fall of last year and really wanted to get their point of view of what's going on in frontline hiring. So here are some of the stats that jumped out at me. And this is a free report that you can get at icims.com/insights. And if you scroll down, there's the frontline hiring report. But interesting data points. 62% of managers identify candidate quality as the primary hurdle, and it's outpacing concerns about turnover and no-shows. And frontline workers have started a job application but abandoned it before finishing. Anyone want to guess one of the leading reasons why they abandoned it?
Is it because they have to copy things 3 times to finish it?
Yeah, kind of along that. Too lengthy and time consuming. So if you can get approved for a mortgage quicker than you can apply for a job on your site, you might want to take a look at it. And then 26% of frontline workers admit to having skipped an interview or ghosted in an interview. And believe it or not, in hospitality, it hits the abandonment is 68%. So can you imagine doing all of this work and then the candidate just doesn't show up? I mean, it just incredibly frustrating. So there's a lot going on, and looking at, you know, some of the frontline hiring that I keep an eye on, that's one part of the sector that's continuing to increase, adding new roles, and applicants are declining. So that's just kind of the data backdrop for all of this as we tackle some of these questions. Y'all ready for the first?
Let's do it.
All right, so we went over the data. What's the biggest misunderstanding or disconnect that you see when you're talking to practitioners?
I think most practitioners are thinking about, I think one of the things I see is that we try to create this like continuous or seamless sort of process between our hiring across the different kind of areas, like so salary, exempt, or hourly, and that the candidate personas are, like you just described, Trent, with the data, are very different. right? And so we have to take like a completely different approach to how we're hiring. So when sometimes, you know, you'll have hourly hiring or frontline hiring that's taken on by the field, right? So restaurant hiring may be handled by the restaurant manager, store hiring may be hired by the store, handled by the store leadership teams. But when they're hired by TA teams, sometimes the TA teams will take this static approach, right, to hiring and then to like understanding the people, and the personas are very different, right? Like some of these folks are using prepaid phones. So we have to think about like how are our systems impacting them financially even. And then like you talked about with application flow and timing, like some of these folks don't have resumes, right? So like how are we handling that and thinking about it in a way that like puts the cookies on the bottom shelf for them? It makes it easy for them, easy, obvious, and strategic for them to jump in and apply and be able to connect with our job applications a lot quicker, right? Our job opportunities is what I should say, a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot more effectively. And I think we don't do that today. I think we're thinking about it statically because it works for us, right? We talk about candidate experience, but we're really focused on our own experiences. And we've got to flip that just to make sure we're like really focused on like micro value propositions for each role. And then what are the personas of each role? And then how do we tailor our process to really be focused on those people?
Makes complete sense. Michelle, what do you think?
I mean, I think, Steve, that brings up a great point. I think one of the things that we think works for us, and I hear practitioners talk about a lot, is sort of the segmentation of hiring, right? And so it's broken down into these flows. But every single time you move from one persona in the hiring organization to the other, or the next step in the hiring organization. So you put the offer letter out, but then you go start the background check and there's no communication, right? And you're not sure what happened. Every single time that happens, the candidate sort of has this erosion of trust in the organization and this faith that it's going to actually work out and result in a job. And so for many of these folks, especially in these types of roles, they're counting on that need for a role and to happen fast, and oftentimes are evaluating multiple roles at one time across multiple organizations. And where they feel the trust and confidence coming in from the organization, I think is where they're going to put the majority of their chips. And so, Trent, when you're saying people are ghosting, they're not showing up for the interviews, it's because they have 5 things in front of them because they need one of these things to work out. And if we're dropping things along the hiring process because we view it in this segmented view because we've been in TA for so long and we're not ensuring trust across that spectrum, we're going to lose people.
Michelle, you said trust. Trust is such a huge thing. I think because I think a lot of these candidates, and sorry, Trent, I'm jumping in there, but like a lot of these candidates are starting off with like this like really low amount of trust in the organizations to begin with. And so like we lose that, like the little bit of trust we had along the way through, like you said, how we're breaking down the hiring process and failing to really meet their needs. I love that.
Yeah, you're reinforcing the paradigm that they already have.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was doing an in-market event. We were talking about frontline hiring. And I just, as I was talking, I did like a little screen share video that I had in the presentation. And I was explaining, you know, a particular data point, and it lasted maybe a minute and 30 seconds. And then I asked the audience, I said, did you see on the screen what was going on while I was talking? In under 2 minutes, I went on to Amazon, found a 42-inch monitor because that's exactly what I need, but a very high-ticket item. Went in, looked at the reviews, compared it to 2 other products, and then had it in my cart. That's the experience that your high-volume candidates are coming to your application site with.
That's
so
good.
Ease of use. They're looking for validation. To the trust factor. What do you have on the site that actually enables them to kind of go, okay, well, this is maybe this is an organization I should really check out. I mean, they've got some great testimonials, all of that kind of stuff. How can you loop it into one thing? And Steve, I want to unpack something that you said, because I think that this has been probably the most gross oversight of all of us that have been practitioner when we're looking at high volume. Most of them don't have resumes. And if they do, it's, they're jumping around just because that's the nature of high volume. one of the ways that we're trying to tackle it at ICIMS is looking at how do we make that application process more conversational, less upload, parse, hey, you didn't put that in the right spot, I wasn't there these years, but like something that they can kind of text, in like a chatbot type of an experience, but it's filling out the application for them.
Yes.
So I think that this is really an interesting time because of the technology, and this is one of the hot sectors that's hiring. I do think that this is really the best time to just blow the whole thing up. How do we do this? And I mean, I was a TA leader and I was a CHRO. Where do most of your great leaders come from? Believe it or not, over time they started out in a high volume role and they learned the business and worked their way up. So why not start on the right foot? So that way when they get to leadership, they're just as passionate about the candidate experience as a hiring manager as they were as a candidate. So just my little 2 cents there.
Oh, I love it.
If I can, I just want to know, I think what you're saying, Trent, in terms of where they're starting in the organization goes to Steve's point about whether or not we're looking at them from a persona perspective, right? You don't want to put the same application metrics or process in front of somebody who's going to be a shelf stalker as someone who's going to sit in a CFO seat of the company. Those two things don't add up. They're not the same. They're not looking for the same level of, compensation. They likely don't have the same level of education. Why are we putting them through all of these hoops that we are putting, senior leadership for? We should be having more personalized experiences. And quite frankly, personalized experiences are what consumers expect. And these people are consumers of your brand before they are ever employees of your brand, right? So if they can go on Amazon, for example, and find a TV in 2 minutes, if they can't go in 2 minutes and apply for a job for a picker-packer role, well, that's problematic.
Yeah. And asinine. I mean, let's just call it. It's asinine.
Yeah.
It is.
At the end of the day.
It really is. And when you can do those things, like you talked about Amazon, I think about Amazon, Walmart, like and like the ease of use and being able to navigate some of those apps, like you talked about, Trent, like you just underscored, Michelle. And then like in some situations, be able to get the product in like 30 minutes.
Yes.
Right. So you're going through the entire process of like, search to purchase to delivery in a matter of 45, not even 45 minutes, like 32 to 33 minutes, essentially, in certain situations. And we're making it, to your point, Trent, like super cumbersome for people to navigate the hiring process, a lot more cumbersome, Michelle, as you were saying, to than a consumer experience. We need to match the consumer experience, especially for this population of candidate and hires, right? Because like those individuals need that more than some of the others. So I think, in my opinion.
No, I agree completely. And, we've kind of talked about the data, we've talked about the gaps. I'd like to just kind of run an idea by you. This is how I looked at it. And thank you, Rosalind Houston, my former CHRO, who put me through design thinking, kicking and screaming because I don't sit well in class. And it was a 4-week class. I'm like, someone's going to die, Rosalind. If you put me in there, someone is going to die. But coming out of it, I was like, okay, that was really interesting. That's how Apple and some of Facebook and all of them, that's their approach to developing products in a very customer-centric point of view. So how do I apply that to recruiting? And I think that, if you're looking at gaps, one of the things in design thinking is a journey map, your client journey map. Look at your candidate journey map from application to interview to assessment, whatever that looks like. And this is a great opportunity if you're a leader, a TA leader, or HR leader, sit down with the team and say, let's map this out. All right, where are the pain points? And not just focus on the candidate. There is a persona that love Lisa Fendello on our team, on our product team. She is obsessed with the hiring manager persona. Like she goes, that experience has been ignored by the industry for 20 something years. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so where are the pain points for the managers? And then just kind of attack the gaps, just one by one. But sometimes having something visual really just kind of brings it in and go, wow, we got to get our crap together. So I don't know, have either of you done that or heard of other practitioners attacking the gap problem that way?
Trent, I've heard Netflix had done it a while back. Johnny Sanchez, who was running TA operations, ran that approach at Netflix, and it was pretty phenomenal. Johnny had done that, right? He focused on at Netflix and focused on the hire. He ran TA operations there. He's now, I think he's at Airbnb if I'm not mistaken. But he had they had gone through like the user experience profiles, right? So candidate experience, but then they really focused and leaned into the hiring manager experience. And I had heard him talk about it about 4 years ago, and I thought it was phenomenal. Right. I mean, just them leaning into it, taking that design thinking approach, really like thinking about TA in a product sense, right? And not in the sense that we've all, or most people have thought about it over the years, and really taking a user experience sort of approach. He brought in UX designers and leaders from the organization, brought in product leaders. Like they really took a collaborative approach to really rethinking the hiring process. And I thought that was really amazing. I've taken some attempts to lean into it, Trent. I can't say I've done it successfully, but I know Johnny has. So
I love that. And it makes sense because if you think of a company that is client obsessed, I mean, Netflix, that's they're in the top 10. So it makes sense that they're kind of playing on that. Michelle, what about you?
I mean, I definitely think we take that approach at Vetty. The process from when an offer letter goes out to day one, so many things happen in that time, and there are a million baton passes, and everybody wants to ensure that we're doing it as quickly as possible. So for us, we want to make sure that the customer, being the candidate, is informed along the way. Like, how many passes are left? How many tests are left? Did I clear that hurdle, right? I think of it in terms of, I don't know. Every time I think of like a 4-person race, I think of the Cosby Show. I don't know if you guys remember that episode, but there was this episode where Cliff went with all his college buddies and like reran. I know the Cosbys. He tarnished his thing, but I have so many memories that I equate to that. But anyway.
And you just aged all three of us. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
And Heathcliff Huxtable is still solid. The
Yeah,
other guy I'm not sure about, but
Heathcliff was
Heathcliff
great,
solid.
right? He was like American Dad. But anyway, there's tons of baton passes, and every time you pass that baton, you have the opportunity to lose trust. You have the opportunity to lose confidence. You have the opportunity to lose faith in where you are in the process and feel a little lost. And so I think with Vetty, we really do our best to keep people as in the loop as possible. But in doing that, we are working with third-party screeners, third-party laboratories, third-party clinics. So it can get messy when you're not holding on to the whole process. And for me, who's, both customer obsessed, journey mapping obsessed, and also a complete control freak, I feel like, oh my God, if we could just bring all of this in-house, it would be so much better. But I think the real magic happens when you figure out how to work with all of those things in the situation you have and make it smooth. And that's sort of what I was saying before in terms of the different areas and departments, between the hiring manager, between the recruiter. I don't know if you guys follow Joel Leggy. I imagine you do, Realist Recruiter, right? He does all of these great things about like where it falls down between the hiring manager and the recruiter. And it's like, oh, I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks and I had to cancel that interview at the last minute, right? Those are all opportunities for us to grow and to see candidates as people, no matter where they are on the funnel, whether they're stocking the shelves or sitting in the C-suite.
That's really good.
Yeah, and to support you with data in that same frontline hiring report, one of the biggest sources of consternation for hiring managers is that once the candidate says, I do, the manager doesn't know what happens between then and the day that they show up.
Right.
And so I agree with you. I think that's low-hanging fruit. I mean, that is ripe for automation. Mm-hmm. Like as soon as they move from here to here, send an email to the candidate, send an email to the recruiter, send an email to the hiring manager. I do think, looking at all of these gaps, one of the things that I've been doing a lot with our clients, we had our client event 2 weeks ago. And I did a train the trainer of basically kind of walking them through saying, okay, at this stage, what are the pain points? Should you automate this? And if so, what are some ideas that you want to beta test? Same thing on AI, should. Mm-hmm. And then what's a timeline that you want to start beta testing? And whenever I do it with clients, when we come out, they've got like a wall of those big sticky easel pads that has each kind of major epic within the hiring journey, where they want to test AI and automation, and then what that timeline is. But they're solving for the pain points that are in that journey. And I think this is what I don't miss being a practitioner, but if I were in a practitioner seat, I would be really excited that technology should be able to help us get some of these gaps under control so that the recruiters can actually focus more on the human.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with the technology we're focusing on the sexy things, Trent, right? Like
Right.
what seems sexy, what's cool, what's out front versus the things, to your point, that are actually closing the gaps. And then, like you said, that communication gap that happens between the time, as you said, the person says I do to the time they start, like we're not handling that really well. I always liken it to like an Uber driver after you get dropped off, like, you don't hear
Yeah.
from the Uber driver again. Rightly so. It's by design.
Right.
Right. But and then if you've taken a lot of Ubers, you usually don't get the same Uber driver again, right? Unless you're in a
Mhm.
small town. And so like I think what happens with the hiring process is we do that, right? We just drop the person off at different stages and then they never hear from the individual again. You start to like kind of make a connection or build trust, or you need a point of contact. And even if that contact is some level of automation with a name attached to it, or something that the person can connect back to, I think it would really help to ease the person's anxiety, stress, and then build trust in the organization that they're going and they're making a commitment to come and work for. So
Because it's a big decision.
it
It may
is.
not, and I think recruiters forget that. You're so far removed. You do this every day, um, but this is a life changing moment for this individual.
It,
So
it is.
you need to treat it, as such. And I it's funny because for a lot of my career as a recruiter, I was like, once they say I do, I'm done. Like we had recruiting ops. Ops did not want me doing anything in their world, and I was totally okay with that because
Yeah.
the 2 or 3 times that I did do something, I jacked everything up for not just my candidate, but every candidate that was in the process. So they were like, you stay off. However, whenever I moved more into HR types of roles, I started to understand that retention starts at the recruiting, especially in high volume. That is
Yes.
the highest turnover in any organization, any industry. If you can focus on that experience and eliminating those gaps on the front end, you're increasing the retention, which is
Yes.
great for the organization. Cost saves. It's great for your clients, your actual clients of the organization, because there's some continuity there. And then two, you're not filling the same damn role every 4 or 5 months. I mean, there were several times I go, didn't I just fill this role for this manager? Like maybe they're adding to the team. No, we lost the person that took me 90 days to find the last time.
Right.
Right.
So, just kind of focusing in on that. So let's move into strategy because I want to be very mindful of our time. I'm a high volume recruiter, or I have got a high volume recruiting shop as a CHRO or a TA leader. Let's come up with a playbook. Like, what can they do as soon as they listen to this podcast and execute to be able to start identifying and fixing some of those gaps? So let's start first with kind of that first touch gap from application to screening with the recruiter. What are some ways that we can close that gap?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that high touch doesn't have to be all human, and I think in this space, it's so important that it probably isn't at this point in time.
Mhm.
We talked about that trust, we talked about the connection. I think we know humans are fallible. I'm not saying technology is perfect, but it's a lot more consistent when developed right and programmed correctly than we are. And so I think the early stage of the process, the screening phase, the vetting phase even needs to be leveraged. Like AI needs to be leveraged, automation needs to be leveraged in order to make the candidate experience better. I think close the gap for the organization to be able to gain access to a wider number of individuals and ensure that people are getting the best experiences. And so there's a number of tools that exist in the market now to be able to do it. And I think if we're not leveraging those things or trying to, I think we're missing the mark. We're missing an opportunity. I think even the lowest hanging fruit, if for some reason your company is AI adverse right now or kind of slow adopters, certainly leveraging the automation in every ATS that exists today, right? There's
Yes.
some, right? So you got like set up like when a person applies for, it shouldn't auto reply to the individual as soon as they apply. That's when people know like it's automation and they feel like there's no connection. but you wait, in a high volume space, I think a few hours, right, before you reply to that individual to make that connection. And then have those regular follow ups programmed in the system to ensure that those connections are being made and people know that they're like, even if a human has to be in the loop and there's no automation, no like real automation to move the candidate through the process, that, that someone's viewing them, that the organization's still there, and they're not lost in the process.
And I want to just add on, because you were talking about getting that automatic reply. For the love of all that is holy, recruiting teams, you have an end stage or a screen that everyone shows after someone applies. Work with your design team or work with legal and come up with something like an infographic of going, here is the journey.
Yes.
Here's where you are. Here's where we use AI. Here's where we use automation. And here's where we use a human. Because the entire industry is being drugged through the dirt for AI automatically, which ironically, the word is in there. The real problem, automatically declining people. We've been using knockout questions for 20 years.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Clear it up with
and
some
keywords.
Transparency. Yeah.
So good.
Absolutely. So Michelle, what about like scheduling? Because in our data, both candidates and managers are like, can you please fix this?
I think scheduling all should be like some type of application, right? You don't need to speak to people. We don't need to be negotiating people's calendars. Let me see their available opportunities and let me pick what works for me. I mean, the fact that we're not doing that is so rude. It's like how we want to operate internally, but we're not providing that same level of forwardness and transparency to the people that we want to work here. That seems disingenuous to me.
It does.
Sure.
And to have a third party in the middle, it's like it's not 1950 where we like need a secretary. What are we doing? And why are we putting that lift on recruiters when recruiters could be taking more time to be doing the things that are important for a human to do? Because I do think that there are a million things that we can do with AI and automation, but there are key moments along that flow where the human touch is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And so why are we not choosing those moments more carefully? I think a lot of times, Steve, this goes to an earlier point that you made, but people look at the sexy and they're super excited about the sexy. And Trent and I were just talking about, going to HR Tech or Unleash or any of these other events. And there's like a buzzword of the year, right? At all of these events every single year, and everybody's talking about it, and you feel like I better buy that thing that has that thing in it that everybody's talking about. How does
that
it
I
fit
can't
into
explain what it does, but it's a cool
I have
thing.
no idea. I just know I need the buzzword. But
Right.
how does that fit into your overall process?
Yes.
And does that make for a seamless candidate experience? To go back to whether or not you provide that consumer experience. I want to schedule my doctor's appointments online. I don't understand why I can't. It's so frustrating to me. I also want to schedule my interviews online.
Right.
I want to compare my schedules. I don't want people deciding for me. I don't want them just saying, hey, we had to reschedule. We moved you to this date. Cool. I'm a single mom. I work. I have kids. Like, don't just move my date. Like, so I think we need to be showing people more respect and humanity than we show them, and also more autonomy, right? Where we can.
Yeah, and just so you know, like my chiropractor, the reason I go to my chiropractor is because they have a texting thing where I can go Wednesday night whenever I think about something at 8 o'clock or 8:30 and the office is closed. I can just send a text and go, hey, I need, an adjustment Thursday, Friday, or Monday of next week. What availability do you have? She pings it back. I say, okay, I'll take this. Done.
Yeah.
And sends the link, fill out these forms. I walk in, get adjusted. 20 minutes later, I am walking out, good to go. That's the kind of experience that I know I look for because I'm lazy. And I think that our candidates are looking for in the process. And scheduling is such an easy thing. I mean, I had an AI scheduler in 2015 that it was an email address that I could CC, and I would just say, hey, and I would say in there, my AI assistant will help us coordinate.
Wow.
So funny story, anytime that like there was something that the AI didn't understand at the time, it would actually ping me an email that says, hey, I got this. I don't know how to respond. I'm kicking it back over to you. Well, one of my executives was trying to hire my AI assistant because he thought that she was human. Like, that's how good it was. And I mean,
That's
this was
awesome.
years ago. So the technology's been out there. Scheduling is
Yeah.
definitely something that should be tackled quickly. So,
Yeah.
Steve, do you
Yes,
look
sir.
at, like, we've been talking about the candidate journey. Do you go in and look at, like, what's the average number of days in each stage to kind of evaluate the candidate experience and where your bottlenecks are?
I think it's the most important thing, right? Those are lead measures that really help us understand the lag measure. I think whether it be, time to fill, which makes me want to jump off of a bridge,
I hate that.
or
Oh, I loathe that metric.
yeah, I do too. I do too. Or hiring velocity being a better metric than that. Like the lead measures that those times and stages, right, allow us to see where the bottlenecks are happening, where we need to lean in more, where we need to really diagnose and resolve issues that are going on right within the organization. Is this an issue that may be plaguing the candidate, or maybe it's a candidate challenge? Is this an issue that falls on us as a TA team? Is this a leader driven issue? Like the times and stages allow us to see those issues, right? To be able to pinpoint them and then dive into them and resolve them. I want everyone in TA to be thinking about those, to be leaning into those, because the lag measures we can't impact. Once we know what they're all, it's too
Done.
late. Right. It's done. Right. We can resolve if we're seeing a process happen in real time and we're looking at the times in the different stages, like we can resolve those problems as they're taking place. So that's one of the areas I look at all the time, Trent. And then it's the areas that like my teams have always had goals around, right? Because I'm like, how long does it take us to move a candidate through the different steps in the process? So then we're ensuring that we're not hanging up, we don't have these bottlenecks, and we can address those issues within our team, but then also influence leaders in the organization around those too.
I love that. And then the last half of the funnel, I think, Michelle, you probably bring the most expertise because this is daily life, from that offer to active window. Like what's in the playbook that TA leaders and CHROs should be considering?
I mean, the most important thing really is understanding from the outset what your requirements are. Oftentimes, what happens is later on in the process, people will be adding things. And every time they add checks to it, we have to go out to another county, we have to go out to another state, and we have to have all of those things checked, or we have to send somebody to another clinic. All of those things are really uncomfortable for the client. The client, in that case, being the candidate.
Canada.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're like, oh, I thought I was done. And it feels like very start stop. So the most important thing is knowing exactly what you need from a clearance perspective at the outset, because then we can outlay for people what their journey is going to look like. They don't feel like they're in a black box. They can follow along where they are, knowing, okay, I cleared this thing, right? And then they can know when their start date is. And some people are getting super pressurized, so we'll, help a staffing firm that needs to have people there the next day, right? And that, turnaround time is got to be like less than a day, so that person can be on a roof to meet the full staff requirements for them to go up. And so ultimately, I think it's about making sure that all sides are informed of where that candidate exists along that Candyland board, right? How far are they getting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another reference that probably only the three of us will get. Kenny. Appreciate that.
I'm so sorry. I guess I'm not as evergreen of a commentator as I thought.
You have one more, so use it sparingly.
He's like, never again.
Never again. No, this has been a lot of fun. I'd always like to end with a mic drop. So if someone only listened to the first 5 minutes and then they come back to the last 5 minutes, what is one piece of advice based off of everything that we talked about? What's that mic drop moment? So I'll go last. Who wants to go first?
I can go. Every job is a business problem to solve, right? Every open job. So the business wouldn't be opening the job if there wasn't a problem that existed. So whether that problem is a host or a hostess, right, within a restaurant, or if it's a picker packer in a warehouse, or it's, a more complex job in an hourly space, like they're all business problems that need to be solved, right? And so like everything we're doing, we should be focused on like what business problem are we helping to the organizations that we're in truly solve, and then how do we do that in the most effective and efficient way. I think about Peter Drucker had a quote that says effectiveness is doing the right things, and efficiency is doing things the right way. And so sometimes, we can be doing the wrong things the right way, so we need to be leaning into like how are we doing the right things the right way as much as we can.
I love that. Michelle.
She's so eloquent. I can't follow that. But I also don't want to follow you. So I'll just say this. At the end of the day, doing things the right way matters on a human level. And so we need to build trust into the operations that we're having. So we can make the operations be whatever we want, but if candidates don't trust us along the way, they're not going to choose our company. And in this space, they have 5 options in front of them. So we need to make them feel as comforted, as taken care of, and as wanted as we possibly can to move them into the actual role and solve the problem that Steve talked about.
I love it. So I'm going to take a comic point of view. So I love the Avengers. And what I see a lot of organizations do is they pick one hero to try to solve every problem, AI, automation, whatever it is. But what you really need is a good team of Avengers. Everyone has their own strengths. When you put them together, you can tackle any problem and pull the right tool at the right time. So my last thought is AI does not solve all problems, but the right people do.
That's good. That's really good. I'm stealing that, Trent.
Hey, it's out there already.
I'm saying
copyrighted it. Sorry. So you can put me right after your Peter Drucker quote there.
Yeah, Trent Cotton says.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know I can speak for all 3 of us. If you want to know more, want to connect with us, we're all very active on LinkedIn, and I am quite sure that we will put our links in the show notes. So with that, until next time, Michelle and Steve, thank you so much. I learned a lot.
Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.
Ciao.